Hello, so today I was just going to share a little devotion about clothes and modesty. So last night I actually did a devotion somewhere to some girls, and although I found it a little bit of a difficult or awkward topic, it is an important one. So I was going to share some of the same thoughts that I shared last night, and because I didn't just read it out, it won't be exactly the same. But yeah, so these are about principles and questions to ask when it comes to choosing clothes. It's not about rules and what we should or shouldn't wear. So first, in 1 Samuel 16 verse 7, there is a verse that is what God said to Samuel when he was looking for a new king in David's family. And the verse talks about how God looks at our heart, but people look at our outward appearance. So from there, I see that what we are inside is what is most important. That is our top priority. But because people, when they look at us, they see what is on the outside, that is important as well. And one time I brought a sachet like this, and on the outside, everything looked perfect, had all the right writing and everything, but there was nothing inside. I don't know how I managed to buy an empty sachet. It was all sealed and everything, but there was just nothing inside. And so, you know, when you buy a sachet, what matters most is what is inside, because that's what you eat. But yeah, the outside is important as well, because when you go shopping, you can only look at what's on the outside, and you have to trust that's what on the inside is the same as on the outside. So what is on the outside is important too, because that's what you see when you go shopping. So it's the same with us. What we are inside in our heart is what matters most. But when people look at us, they see what is on the outside. So that is important too, because that is what people see. And also what is in our hearts can affect the choices we make when it comes to our clothes. So what's inside of us is what's most important, and God looks on our heart, but people look on our outward appearance, so that is important too. And then in Matthew 22:34-40, it talks about the two greatest commandments, how we are to love God with all our hearts, and then how we are to love our neighbor. So it's about loving God and loving others. And so that can apply to the way that we dress as well. So these are a few questions and principles to think about when you think about your choice of clothing. And these principles and questions you can apply to wherever you go that is in public. So, you know, whether you go to the park, whether you go shopping, or whether you go to the beach or the swimming pool, wherever, all those places are where people see us. So it matters in all of those places. So first, talking about loving God. How do we love God in the way that we dress? So two questions to think about. Because, yeah, loving God with the way you dress is really thinking, what would God have me to wear? You know, what does God think about the way I dress? So first question would be, would I wear this if Jesus was here? So if you just imagine, you know, there was a knock at the door and you went to go answer it and it was Jesus there, would you have to quickly get changed first? Would you be embarrassed at what you're wearing? Or would you feel perfectly comfortable? So that's a good question to think about. And I don't mean that, you know, you need to go and put on your best church clothes or anything like that, but would you be comfortable in the clothes that you're wearing, even if they are, you know, not necessarily really nice dressy up clothes? Would you be comfortable? And the second question is one that sounds a little bit strange, but the question is, what would Jesus wear? So there's the WWJD, what would Jesus do? But what about WWJW? If Jesus was a girl, what would Jesus wear? Now that sounds strange because Jesus was a man, but if you just imagine if Jesus was a girl, how would he dress? Now I don't think there's one particular way that he would dress if he was a girl, because we all have different tastes, we have different personalities, and that's what makes us all special, because we're all unique and different. Some of us are more kind of tomboyish and don't really care too much what we look like, or we just like to be comfortable and practical. Some of us are more girly girls and like to dress up more and, you know, spend a lot more time on that. But I think there are some things Jesus wouldn't wear. So I don't think Jesus would dress in a way that would, you know, bring attention to his body, that type of thing. So what would I wear this if Jesus was here? And what would Jesus wear if he was a girl. So that's about loving God. And what about loving others as yourself? So how can you love others in the way that you dress? So a question you can ask about this is, will I make anyone feel uncomfortable? So if you think, for guys, guys are attracted to girls and their bodies. That's just the way it is. And so if we don't clothe ourselves properly, if we wear clothes that are very revealing or don't really cover ourselves or are very tight and, kind of draw attention to our body, then that can make guys who want to have good thoughts and right thoughts, we can make them feel very uncomfortable. So we want to dress in a way that all guys around us can feel comfortable in, because we can be a temptation in the way that we dress. So will I make anybody feel uncomfortable? Will I be an unnecessary temptation? So really, I think modesty is really about loving others and, considering others, not just thinking about me, but will I make anybody else feel uncomfortable? And now what about ourselves? We are God's beautiful creation. So although we're thinking about loving God, we're thinking about loving others, we're also thinking about ourselves. We are God's creation. God has made us beautiful and special, so we should value ourselves in the way that we dress. That means we don't need to try and dress in a way that draws attention to us, because we already know we're special and beautiful. But a question to ask yourself is, am I protecting myself? So like I said, guys are attracted to girls and to their bodies as well. So when we cover ourselves up, we are helping to protect ourselves. So the other day I taught the story of Bathsheba, and she was somewhere where people could see her, and I don't think she was dressed properly, and that helped cause David to sin. Now what he did was his responsibility and was very wrong, and he was responsible to God for that. But Bathsheba may have protected herself if she had been more careful when she was in public. So when we dress modestly, we can be helping to protect ourselves. And men are responsible for what they do, but we are responsible for what we do as well, and for the way that we dress. And one time I did hear a story of a man who had attacked some girls, and the person who was I don't know if it was a newspaper person or whoever was talking about it, said the way the girls were dressed explained it. Now, of course, that didn't excuse the man. What he did was wrong, but they could have protected themselves if they had dressed more decently. And also along with that, you could ask the question, do I feel comfortable? Because if our clothes don't fit properly, or clothes can make us feel uncomfortable, so we can make sure that we feel comfortable as well. And another question is, do I look like a girl? So we live in a world where there can be a lot of confusion about this. You can go downtown and see somebody and think, is that a girl? Is that a boy? I don't really know. So if we are a girl, then we should make sure that we look like a girl. Even if we are a real tomboy, we can still make sure we look like a girl, because that's what God created us. And the last one, which maybe goes more along with loving others, is what is the fifth commandment. So the fifth commandment is about honoring our parents. So if we live at home, if we're under our parents, then we need to respect the rules that they have, and we need to honor them when it comes to the clothes that we wear. So when I lived at home, my parents had rules about clothes, and sometimes that was very annoying. I couldn't just wear whatever I wanted. And they were very good and always tried to explain the reasons for those rules. And I really appreciate that. And at the time you may find it annoying, but later on you will come to appreciate it. I really appreciate it now that my parents did have rules, and that I couldn't just wear anything, because they taught me these principles. And although I don't necessarily stick to all of the same rules, I do stick to these principles. So yeah, if you have parents who have some rules and guidelines about what you wear, and you can't just wear anything that there is in the shop to buy, that's something to really be thankful, because they care about you and they're trying to protect you. And one day you maybe understand it a little bit better, and you'll come to appreciate it. So even if it's annoying, just remember to honor your parents, just be thankful that they care about you and that they're trying to protect you. So those are a few thoughts about modesty and about clothes. Loving God in the way that we dress, loving others, being considerate of others, make sure we're not making them feel uncomfortable, and honoring ourselves, having dignity and protecting ourselves, because we are God's special creation. So those are a few things to think about when you think about clothes. And remember that what is inside of us, our heart, is what matters most. Because we could look perfect on the outside and yet be empty of love for God and love for others. But what is on the outside does matter too.